Good morning. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm your host, James Risdale, and I'm the Solutions Lead here at DataJar. We have a few key partners and vendors that I want to talk to you about today. The first of those is Apple. We're a proud member of the Apple Consultants Network, and we've worked deeply with Apple for many, many years. Secondly is with Jamf. Jamf produce a range of managed service of device management products for the Apple platform. DataJar Jamf Integrator, Integrator Pro, Gold Reseller, and Certified Managed Service Provider here in the UK. Today's webinar is about managing devices in education and the ingredients to a successful deployment. And here's today's schedule. Today I'm going to talk to you about procurement, as this is where your journey starts. Next is getting started with Apple School Manager and Classroom. I'll touch in and discuss some various elements around infrastructure and some best practice and some insight about things we found in our journey with Apple. I'll explain to you around about the directory services and why these are important and why these should be integrated into your services for a zero-touch deployment experience. I'll also cover managed Apple IDs and what exactly makes these IDs special. I'll also discuss some managed mobile device management and what it is and why you need it. I'll give you some examples of some deployment types, whether it be one-to-one deployments, shared, personalized. And lastly, we'll discuss resourcing, so life after the rollout and the common mistakes we see with organizations managing Apple. Again, for your benefit, this is how everything ties together. So let's get going. Okay, procurement, the building blocks to your Apple deployment. Please ensure you procure all your hardware directly from Apple or an authorized reseller. Only Apple or an authorized reseller is able to give you registered devices in Apple School Manager. It's important as macOS devices procured via an unauthorized reseller are unable to be put into Apple School Manager, and this will cause you headaches later on down the line. This is due to device supervision. It's also important that only Apple or an authorized reseller can add volume credit to Apple School Manager so you can procure apps and books via a purchase order. iOS and tvOS have the option to be manually enrolled into Apple School Manager via Apple Configurator 2. So essentially, purchasing these directly from an Apple authorized reseller isn't necessarily required, but it does add an additional deployment step to your workflows. Apple School Manager. This was launched in public beta in August 2016, so it's had a few years to bed in. This moved away from the separate device enrollment program and volume purchase program portals. To enroll your organization into Apple School Manager, you'll need various types of legal information about your organization, such as a registered address and VAT status. I would strongly recommend speaking to a member of your finance team to obtain this information for enrollment. Please also allow yourself some time to complete the enrollment, as registration can take up to 4 weeks. If you're planning a summer deployment, my advice is to get started now. It will save you a lot of headaches further on down the line. If you have a legacy deploy.apple.com management service with Apple, this is Apple's first iteration of Apple deployment programs. Upgrading is simple and easy, and you can follow this by going to HT206590. The link's on your screen there. So, Apple School Manager, what does it do? Well, it's a central place to manage devices, content and apps, people and classes. It enables automatic enrollment of devices into an MDM at the point of a device activation, i.e. straight out the box. It streamlines the setup assistant, enabling your users to suppress certain options when used with an MDM. You can manage additional settings and ensure macOS and iOS devices are supervised, which is critical for education deployments. macOS supervision takes place, essentially puts the device into enterprise mode, which automatically installs NDM profile, which is user approved. This enables low-level management of kernel extensions, as well as privacy policy control. Both of these technologies are vital to your institution. This ensures products like antivirus will run in your environment unhindered. Otherwise, it will require manual approval from the end user. This could be a student, so you could be left with devices that are unsecured. Finally, you can create multiple MDM servers and set device assignments based on hardware type, i.e. iPads go to one MDM, Apple TVs go to another, and so on. Here's an example of your MDM assignments inside Apple School Manager. And you'll see there the option there to obtain your token, which can be put into your MDM server. So now we want to look at the content we can deploy. So what is defined as content? Apple School Manager enables you to buy apps, custom apps, books in bulk, and manage your licenses centrally, and can aid deploying to devices or users via an MDM. So you can assign software or content to a user or a device. You have two options. You can assign and revoke and reassign apps. You can easily transfer licenses within your organization as well. So you can have, if you're a school, you can have multiple locations and you can transfer software between each of those sites. Here's a screenshot of what the apps and books look like in Apple School Manager. Finally, in Apple School Manager, you can create accounts that can easily manage your locations, devices, and content. You can have a device manager account for enrollment and MDM, a content manager account for apps, books. Perhaps you could assign someone in procurement or other departments or line managers to look after certain procurement processes. And lastly, you can have a people manager account for managing staff, students, and classes. So you can really set tiered access up. And this is again based on location and overall organizational structure. Here's a screenshot of the account management section in Apple School Manager. If you're planning your deployment and you are a school which has multiple locations, then I would recommend that you review HT 207.05, this is a support article by Apple. It's vital that Apple School Manager is available in your particular region. It's available in most countries, but please do check before planning your deployment. Otherwise, this could hinder things later on down the line. Next, I'm going to talk about Apple Classroom. Apple Classroom is included with Apple School Manager as well, and it's available in the App Store. It's available for iOS, and just recently, last year, also macOS. Apple Classroom enables you to launch and lock apps on devices that are managed. Teachers can observe student devices. They can create groups of students on the fly for particular classes. They can share work and content over AirPlay. They can restrict student passwords and even mute student devices if they're being disruptive. Infrastructure. Now, this is really key. If it's ignored, it can make your whole deployment and your whole implementation a complete failure. So this is some of the information I've gleaned over the years of doing this. When we talk about infrastructure, we classify into three areas: connectivity, content caching, and AP&S. First and foremost, I cannot stress enough, an enterprise class network is required to manage any sort of Apple technology like this. It's high bandwidth, high throughput, so an unmanaged network isn't going to do. I would recommend you plan your network extensively as well. Perhaps obtain an Echo House survey before a paper survey if you're planning a new wireless implementation, or perhaps hire a network architect for this role. You can look at various different deployment types of radio frequency as well if you're looking into wireless. Typically, you can use 802.11b GRN, which is 2.4, for classrooms where there is a lot of perhaps objects in the way. So 2.4 gig can travel through things a lot easier. 5 gigahertz does suffer less interference, but doesn't travel through larger objects. So do plan your deployments carefully. You can consider multiple SSIDs as well for device enrollment. You could have a separate VLAN for staff and a separate VLAN for students. These are both mapped to different SSIDs accordingly. Perhaps the student VLAN is more restricted than the staff VLAN. Also avoid using hidden SSID or closed networks. There's actually no security benefit here at all. And all it's going to do is delay association with a network and cause additional power consumption on a device. Now, obviously, if you've got a classroom of students and the devices are power draining all day, that's not going to be a good experience for the end user. Ensure your network permits TCP 443 outbound to your cloud-hosted MDM vendor, i.e. Datajar.mobi or Jarrett Cloud. There are other domains which aren't necessarily published, but if you get in the way of traffic to these, this can cause issues, as sometimes Apple uses other content delivery networks. These are akdns.net, akamai.net, akamiedge.net, akamaitechnologies.com, edgekey.net, and footprint.net. But please be aware, again, if you're implementing this technology, make sure you have someone there monitoring the firewalls so you can see the traffic. We have seen issues in the past. Also, please avoid any SSL inspection on this traffic, as this is going to prevent MDM commands reaching the device. So the very technology you put in to manage your estate is being stopped by the very technology you're also trying to protect your users by. It's a bit of a juggling act. Also ensure and perhaps consider global HTTP proxies. So as of iOS 9 and up, you can deploy a global proxy to an iOS device and indeed a macOS device. This will ensure content filtering if your proxy supports it. You can put a proxy perhaps in your DMZ and you can route traffic via a global proxy from an iOS device or a macOS device via that proxy, whether it's inside your network or outside your network. So you could use split DNS for that. This would ensure content filtering of a device wherever it is in the world via your content filters. Next up, content caching. Content caching helps reduce network bandwidth for iOS, macOS, and tvOS by caching security updates, applications, and content. Content cache also includes a service called tethered caching. So if you're deploying a large amount of iOS devices via a Mac on the Ethernet connection, the Mac will cache those iOS updates. So when you're preparing a lot of iOS devices, this actually makes this process faster. If you need to access tethered service on macOS, you could run sudo tethered-caching from the command line. The content caching service works with device enrollment program and volume purchase program, and content cache is built into macOS. Content caching also includes iCloud caching. It's important to note that all content that is cached that contains iCloud content is fully encrypted, and the actual cache itself does not have the keys available to decrypt it. So if you had a content caching macOS piece of hardware on your network and it got stolen, there's no detriment to any of the data on it. I would also ensure if you are using perhaps shared iPad workflow, which is a recognized deployment workflow, that your content cache is within region of your docked iPads. So if they're shared use and you lock the iPads into a cupboard, make sure they have solid internet connectivity via an access point. As when the iPad, even though the user is logged out of the iPad with their Apple ID, the content that they were working on is still being seeded off to the content cache behind the scenes. If you don't allow that process to happen, when the iPads are brought out again for the next class, when they're shared, the user can't log on to them because there's no storage space available. So please bear these things in mind. We recommend using SSD-based storage for content caching due to the high amount of IOPS that are required. Connect your content caching service to an Ethernet connection as well for best performance. We recommend not to proxy any client request to a content cache. And if you want to specify any advanced options on the content cache, you can run Asset Cache Manager util from the command line on any macOS device. Last up, Apple push notifications. This protocol is critical when managing Apple devices, as what it will do is force the device to check in with its management server. APNs are required for the device enrollment program and Apple's volume purchase program. Make sure your network permits 5223 TCP and 443 fallback outbound to star.apple.com from your network. And once again, avoid any SSL inspection on this traffic, as this will prevent the command reaching the device, thus making it unmanaged. Directory services. Commonplace in most education environments already, traditionally Active Directory, but I would strongly recommend that you look at a cloud-first strategy if you want already, i.e. services like Jump Cloud, Azure, Google Directory, or Okta. A central directory service is commonplace in most institutions and can be required for Wi-Fi and mail already. A directory service can aid a one-to-one or a shared deployment configuration and reduce IT's involvement day to day. Consider integrating your MDM services into a directory service for inventory data and application assignments. What we mean by this is we can map an Active Directory group or an LDAP group via an MDM server to a application type. So you could say all users that are a student get this particular application, or all users that are in year 9, year 10, year 11, etc. get these applications. So it makes things a lot easier. When your users move between groups or security groups in Active Directory or your LDAP, the application assignments dynamically change, thus reduces any support overhead as well. Additionally, a directory service enables you to pre-compile using MDM variables an MDM payload to the device. So again, no IT involvement is required. So what we mean by this, you could use a $email to pre-configure an MDM payload. When the user goes to use that payload, when it gets delivered to the device, it will pull their email address from your LDAP server, map that across, and set up their email account for them. Again, this makes things very, very simple. Next up, managed Apple IDs. Why are managed Apple IDs important? These are a special type of identity issued by Apple. These are aimed at schools as well. With managed Apple IDs, you have the option to generate hundreds or thousands of Apple IDs, I think up to 5,000 at a time, either manually via a CSV import, or you can automate this via SFTP, and you can use other solutions such as Salamander to integrate into your internal MIS and take that data from your directory service perhaps, and take that straight into Apple School Manager with all your classes as well. Again, these tools are out there. Each managed Apple ID has around 200 gigabytes of iCloud storage and has access to certain services, shared iPad, iCloud Drive, photos, etc. They also have access to Apple Schoolwork, full class assessments, and register. Managed Apple IDs also allow the institutional password reset function as well. So an authorized person can go into Apple School Manager and reset an identity on a device, and a one-time passcode is generated to get access to that iPad. Again, it's all done in a nice approved way. With managed Apple IDs, there's no access to commerce. So no access to iTunes Store, App Store, Apple Bookstore, etc., etc. There's also no access to email. There's no access to Find My iPhone, and there's also no access to Apple Pay or Wallet. Please also bear in mind, by default, FaceTime and messages are disabled at an organizational level in Apple School Manager. You can enable this if you want in the Apple School Manager console. More information on managed Apple IDs for education can be found at HT205918. Additionally, information on iCloud managed Apple IDs can be found at PH24395. Next up, mobile device management. What is it? Why do I need it? Mobile device management is made up of these various top-level areas. So DEP, VPP, restrictions, commands, and queries. If you were to look at that as an overview, that is what it kind of looks after. We've already dealt with DEP and VPP though, because they're covered in Apple School Manager. So let's focus on restrictions, commands, and queries. MDM restrictions allows you to restrict device features on a device. As such, you may want to disable the App Store, hide certain apps. You may want to prevent the modification of accounts on the system, whatever you want to do on that device. It gives you a deep control of that device as well, and also the user experience. You may want to change the wallpaper. You may want to change the certain applications that you want available in the dock. You may want to prevent the user to stop disabling Bluetooth or modifying your Wi-Fi connection. You can lock all of this down. A lot of this is only available though with supervision, and supervision relies on Procurement and Apple School Manager. So you can see how these are linked. So if you start at the right procurement step, when you get to this stage to start restricting devices, you'll find you can do this correctly. You can also manage access to iCloud, Safari, AirPrint, Siri, and deep ingrained security and privacy settings, such as screen lock times as well. You can deliver MDM commands to a device, managing it if it's lost or stolen. You can remove MDM configurations, you can remove apps, and most importantly, if a device is missing, you can wipe it. Lastly, MDM queries can be used to monitor compliance, and ensure that users maintain appropriate apps via an inventory as well, so we can see exactly what is installed on those devices. We can obtain device details such as storage, network information such as the IP address. Mobile device management. Again, looking at this. Are we talking about mobile device management, or are we more looking at a more holistic view of device management? MDM is part of the process for macOS. It's the whole process for iOS and tvOS. But I can see over the next few years that macOS will be as, the MDM parts of that will be as integrated as they are with iOS. However, at the moment, we're in a state of flux. So you need a management platform and a management tool that can deal with all of these things very competently. And this is why Jamf partnered with DataJar and vice versa. We've got a strong partnership encompassing a whole range of services, and we've been in partners for many, many years. Out of this, DataJar has essentially built their own service and their own platform to deal with all the challenges and deployment challenges that you would deal with day to day. We cater for iOS, tvOS, and macOS. These are the top level areas that we look at. So first and foremost, no matter what your devices are and what they're doing, if they're leaving your organizational network, they need to be encrypted. Those keys for that encryption need to be stored securely. We can manage that process for you, or you can manage it yourselves. Too often we see organizations with spreadsheets and firewall bypass keys in the spreadsheets. Again, we can get rid of that whole process. You can have centralized key management. Next, you want to make sure that all of your software that is on all of your devices is the same version. If you're deploying Creative Cloud 2019, if you're Creative Cloud 2018, if you're deploying operating systems, the whole piece, you want a simple way of managing all that. This is what we do via our auto updates, where we have 300 titles available at your disposal. If you're deploying titles like Logic and GarageBand, these often come with a lot of content. Our services have all that content pre-available for you, so the additional 100 to 150 gigabytes worth of content on your lab-based Macs is all deployed automatically for you. As we partner with Jamf, we have the best of breed MDM, and we provide zero-day support for the latest Apple technology. We have some advanced zero-touch deployment workflows that can help your organizations on board with Apple devices. Our track record states that we can deploy up to 1,000 to 2,000 devices in a matter of hours without even needing to be on site. We have a simple way for you to administer your devices as well via Simplified Management, which I'll show you later, with no experience required of device management. And for your end users, your students, your staff, we have self-service, where you can deliver your apps and content as well to your end users. Could be policies, could be documents, whatever you want, in a nice, easy to use internal app store. So let's look at a zero-touch workflow. So we've looked at our procurement, we've looked at our authentication, we've got our Apple Business Manager, we've got all these ingredients together. So we've got everything in place. So this is an example workflow of how we would deploy a shared iPad in an education environment. First off, the device is joined to a network. It activates at that point. It will bring down the enrollment information. It will connect to the MDM. And we've skipped all the options in the setup of the system. The device is now activated, it's supervised, it's managed. Now our application will deploy down, and the end user can then select from a predefined list of configurations that are available to them. In this case, we'll pick student. They hit continue. That will update the device in our system. And within a matter of moments, all the apps, content, settings, email configurations will start to come down to the device, and the device is ready to use. Next, we'll look at a Mac. So this is a one-to-one Mac, perhaps a member of staff. It's taken out the box for the first time. They select their language, their keyboard layout, and once again, the device activates and the configuration is available. They authenticate using their school identity. They get varying options. They're prompted for a computer account, which is predefined and filled out the local account on the system with the same information they entered to set up a system. They can now choose any preferences we make available to them, and the device is now being prepared for its first run. Now our deployment workflow gets deployed, and the user can now select what department they're in. And once again, this will update the system behind the scenes, and the device is now deploying all the software it requires for that particular configuration. And this can happen anywhere in the world. It doesn't necessarily need to be within the school network. So it could be a staff machine with a laptop over the summer deploying it at home. Next, the device will restart. The policies will be applied. So we've gone from a completely blank machine to a fully configured machine in a matter of minutes. The user can go in, launch self-service, and now they can pick and choose any applications they want to install from a range that are available to them. If we go into the system preferences, we can check that the device is fully managed with all MDM profiles. The user logs out and they're prompted for their password. At this point, a unique encryption key is generated and that's sent off. So we have a 0 to fully configured device in a matter of minutes. We can bring all this together as well with a nice simplified management interface to your entire estate. You can see all your new devices available to you, and you can change configurations. This is available for iOS and indeed macOS. You can see detailed device inventory, you can see enrollment supervision information, storage information, and you can change configuration of devices. So you could say, I want to change this from being a staff device to a student device, and you can do that from the palm of your hand. You can put devices into loss mode, you can track their location, and you can clear passcodes. You can carry out bulk configuration changes, and you can asset tag your estate also. And lastly, resourcing. This is vital. To make all of your deployments successful, you need to make sure that you have the necessary skills, not just today, but ongoing, to maintain your estate. Do you have a team of Apple IT professionals in-house? Are they trained? Are they up to speed? Is Apple your focus for your institution? Or is Microsoft? Or don't you have a preference? We often see these things sometimes slide by, and this is why we've come up with our deployment options. So, depending on your organization, we can offer our services as self-managed, fully managed, or hybrid. Our self-managed services are ideal for those organizations that have a large IT team and a large internal infrastructure that can deal with this day to day, and that are investing heavily in this and will continue on the training path. Our fully managed service is what you've kind of just seen. That is where we look after everything for you. And then you've got a bit of both at the end, which is the hybrid service, which contains everything that's self-managed and fully managed all in one piece, where you can have an IT team that can have access to the systems and can do bits and pieces, but equally we can provide them with adequate cover if they are not available or if there are staff moves and changes. So just a summary on what we've covered today. Ensure you procure all your devices from an Apple authorized reseller. Ensure you leverage and integrate Apple School Manager and Classroom into your environment. Carefully design your network infrastructure and make sure it's not hostile to Apple technology, as the technology will just fail and the user experience will fail. Choose the correct device management partner. Be selective when you purchase or procure an MDM. Do engage, do your research. And lastly, and most importantly, make sure you resource or either outsource. So if you don't have the internal resource to do this, outsource the service out and give it to professionals that can keep on with your platform ongoing. If you want to find out further information on our services, please go to datajar.co.uk where you can see all of our range of services and products. This includes backup, identity management, and other MSP services. If you've got any questions about this webinar, please get in touch at hello@datajar.co.uk. And thank you very much for your time. I understand you're all busy and you're probably all planning for your summer deployments. Keep an eye on future webinars at datajar.mobi and keep an eye on our application deployment, threat detection, security services, which are upcoming. I'm James Ristow, and this concludes today's webinar. Thank you very much for your time.